You're watching Wartscenter.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Wartscenter. That's episode 15. In today's episode, we're going to break down week 3, our first week of Divisionals. We're going to talk about all the player advancements, go around the league, and we'll preview week 4's divisional matches. Welcome in, everybody. I'm your host, Brand Bauger, and joined with me, as always, are Koba, Dimitri Lund, and Tanaka. How is everyone doing?
Good. Thank you for asking.
A wonderful evening, as always, Brand.
Very good. Also, episode 15.
So we'll start with we'll get into that. We'll start reading them like bad cryptid top 10s.
Perfect.
Anyway, let's talk about it. The first week where things actually matter. We'll start right at the top with this doozy. Wildwood Eldar United tie against the New Report Brainwave Blitzers. Wildwood is putting on a defensive show, it seems, and New Report is continuing to be the killers so far this season. Doom Ripper woke up, got himself quite a few casualties, and was able to put in the score at the very last end of the half. Lucius Fell Thief. And then on the other end, Wildwood scored quickly, but nothing else happened after that, so we ended in a tie. Anything to say about this match, guys?
It was so uneventful, I don't remember it. And I was there.
Yeah, it was a bit of a bizarre showing as far as the back and forth, I think, of the exchange. New Report, obviously, as we look at the log here, had a lot of momentum in that first half, which is where most of the damage was done. Eldar United didn't go down without a fight. Their linemen, Bark and Ivy, have been doing a great job of holding up the strong Eldar United defense. Usually when you look at an Elven Union team, you're looking at these high-scoring, fast-paced threats, but they've actually been very good playing defensively this season so far, and it's enough to keep New Report from getting that second score at the end of the game in order to force a draw to start their divisional schedule.
Doom Ripper cooking at 3 casualties on the third week. Love to see it, of course.
Oh, yeah. He's getting scary. All right. And the New England Matriarchs, not a very eventful game, but the New England Matriarchs come out ahead 2-0 against the Los Alamos Aliens. Tanaka, you want to break this one down?
Share with the class.
I think this game could be summed up in one word. Disappointing. I think both coaches walked away from this. Obviously, Matriarch got the win, and they were happy with that, but we both kind of agreed. There was several KOs and stuns this entire game. Obviously, with Amazons, everyone has dodge. So if you're playing a bash team without a lot of block, you basically have to roll POWs all the time to get those knockdowns. Not a lot of removal going on overall on the Los Alamos side. And then, honestly, for Los Alamos, they did their best. Warfius kind of tripped up again, but he did perform a bit better, doing some ball sneaking, scooping, and then trying to break away, failing to dodge, of course, on a 2+ twice. But beyond that, there were 7 KO roll attempts made by Los Alamos. Only 1 succeeded. So I think really, when you look at it, just being down that many players for that much of the game, the fact that it was only a 2-0, it's kind of shocking, because I know he was trying to put a third one in, but I mean, just trying to slow that down with a limited number of bodies, it's pretty big. But we both wanted more casualties. I wanted another score. This is the second week in a row where second half, late in the half, I set up for a potential casualty-heavy turn, and they get the blitz, which basically negates it. So that was a bit disappointing. But honestly, pretty clean. He ran the clock out, and just got to keep moving. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, well done, Matriarchs. But yeah, this with this low amount of actions, it's a little sad to see. Where's the blood?
Yeah, this is our second straight season with a low event team sitting close to the top of the standings, and it panned out well for the LWA last season. We'll see if the Matriarchs hold up to a similar level of threat.
I think they will.
All right. The Roth Legion Rampage win 3-0 over the Antekan Kings. Dimitri, I know you were pitch side. How'd this one go?
Well, it was a very muddy start to the game for the Rampage, who chose to receive, but the opening kickoff was caught by the quickly becoming infamous Lug Frumbledunder. The Troll Slayer immediately decided to go forward with the ball on a blitz, and chaos ensued from there as he immediately got knocked on his own ass, and the ball was bouncing loose at midfield for basically the entire first half. As we look at the log, only one event actually even transpired in the first half, and that was ultimately Dolph Finnegan's first casualty of the season. So he's finally starting to come alive. So 0-0 at the half after the Rampage tried their best to scrap something together. Kings receiving in the second half, they had a tiny bit of momentum in the casualty column, as you can see. Out remains getting a big casualty on Horse Pringle after Pringle got launched by Thunderbranch's second throw teammate of superb status this season, which is impressive in its own right. I do want to mention that, but that slowed down the momentum that the Kings had coming back enough to deal with, Halfling in the backfield. They ultimately do push aside Spliff Grimsley, but Tad Lateness came in and ran in the touchdown. And late in the game, thinking the Rampage are just going to sneak away 1-0, a poor effort to pick up the ball actually got Dolph Finnegan to run down, grab the ball, and push it in for a second touchdown real quick for the Rampage. And when it looked like the game was just kind of going into garbage time, another throw teammate attempt from Thunderbranch got Joe Nochi into the backfield, and another failed pickup attempt from the Kings backfield resulted in Nochi leaping up and managing to get it in for a surprising third score. So the first half was anybody's game. I think that was a lot of people's predictions, but then the Rampage quickly ramped from 0 to 60 in the second half.
Yeah, the game was kind of like a desert. There was nothing going, and then once that first drop hit the sand, the torrential downpour came in.
Yeah, I think the easy way to say is that the decay of the mummies finally caught up to them, and while they didn't really suffer a whole lot in the fighting department, the Rampage, held their line long enough to just grab the ball where the Kings couldn't.
Now, how do you address the allegations of blessing the rains?
Well, I mean, we're just playing another game in Borlington, and thankfully there was no rain in the forecast this past week, so I think that's probably the most favorable thing I could say for the Rampage, and hopefully there's momentum that the Kings can get out of this. We did see them pick up a level, and we'll get to that later, on Patella Makufi, who was awarded the match MVP for holding the line very well for the Kings in the midst of their attempts to slow down the Rampage attack in the second half. So, I think it was a good game showing for both teams. Rampage ultimately come out on the scoring column, but I don't think it was a bad one for either one.
Yep. I mean, even in defeat, these teams are all getting better, so it's good to see. All right, the SCLSU Mudclaws get victory over the Primates of San Fran Caesar's Legion. Koba, what happened?
It was a tough match. All hope was a little lost without the field leader Harambe. The sources were quite strong. The defense tried to defend, however, the Skinks were just much too fast. No passes were able to be made for quite some time. In all things considered, it was just a poor showing from the Apes. The Lizards won it fair and square, and in this Godzilla vs. Kong match, Godzilla was the king of monsters.
Thank you, Koba. I know that's hard to say.
Sorry I couldn't talk through the tears in my eyes.
I do want to address, it was very interesting to see that despite the Lizard versus Ape matchup, with that inducement package, the Legion chose to enlist Anky Panky, a Saurus.
Who will be known thus forth as Stanky Panky. Their performance was just not very good. Also, the Lizards kept beating their own. But same old story, lizard on lizard violence.
Well, this, was, I believe, the first time Anky Panky was induced in our league, so probably had a pretty long flight to make it over to the Northern Kingdom, so.
A little jet lagged.
They were quite jet lagged, yes.
Yeah. All right, and holy, the Vermin Skulkers.
You said Anky Panky was the league first. We witnessed the match in league history.
Yes. The Vermin Skulkers put up a league record 7 touchdowns against the Orlando Orcas, who find themselves without even a casualty in this game. Tough stuff. I mean, there's really not a whole lot to say. It was all Skulkers all day.
You hate to see it, and you have to smack the rat. I did not
Yeah.
see one rat smacked.
I know that was the intention. I think the Rats just came extra sturdy this week. So
Yeah,
I figured. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I got to, as this was the next pitch over from the Kings Rampage game, I got a glance as this game ran long from all the stoppages of play from Longshanks Stilltail running up the score. But in actuality, Rats were on their backs a lot of the night. They just managed to have enough time to spring up and keep the Orcs from pushing their heads further into the dirt. With that in mind, because they were so focused on that attack that we've been talking about the Orcs having, the Skulkers just got to run down the sideline past them.
Well, I was going to say, obviously last week I picked this team, the Skulkers, to win 5-0. I didn't expect them to win 7-0. That's obviously, like we've said, league-shattering history right there. But I'll say it again. We're witnessing them at their floor, and they're going to keep ramping up. This team is incredibly scary. They're currently at the top of the rankings, although this week they have some trouble ahead. So we'll see how that pans out. But this is the team to watch, and I would not be surprised if they made it all the way to the end.
and it's a team we'll get to watch, which is also very exciting. All right, and in similar fashion, the Slam Diego Chargers put the smackdown on the Guttersburg Rebels. This was the match.
This
Go ahead, Goba.
was the smacked rats.
There were many rats smacked. Yeah, this match, you guys had the pleasure of seeing it live, was just not really a contest from the beginning, and that's just down to armor rolls. We were truly robbed of a very fun match by the Chargers just choosing violence.
Yeah. It was pretty much just all charges all the way rolling. You look at the stat log as you see on your screen right now. It was 3 casualties on turn 2 alone, including the death of Nickel Malone, who had finally been successfully thrown by Sir Reginald, and that was the only momentum the Rebels had all game. And like I said, it was just Chargers chose violence, and they just kept going with it.
Yep.
Yeah, I got to watch this on the stream, and it was like watching a train wreck. You couldn't look away. I just, a lot of the dodge rolls. I asked Josh, "Do you need to change your dice?" And he said, "Absolutely not." And he stuck with it. And I'll give him credit for that.
Yeah.
But this is, everyone has one of these games. He'll bounce back from this. I'm curious if the damage from all these missed next games and stat busted players will come into effect for them down the line, because they really needed this development. But as you can see with 0-0, this really hamstrung them a bit overall.
Yeah. That's the biggest concern I think we would have for Guttersburg going forward. I actually have Guttersburg dropping to 11th in my overall rankings just because they have almost no development through these first 3 games of the season, and for as good as of a threat Underworld can be, they do need those first couple levels, and they are not getting them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you just hate to see it. And like the brilliance of the Rebels coach is there. You can see from turn 1, like there was the casualty initially, but that superb throw teammate was in response to a gap that the Chargers coach had left completely open. There was an attempt on the ball to knock the ball out from the very beginning in the Chargers backfield that could have completely busted this game open. The ball comes out of an Orc's hand, and there's a rat there to pick it up. Like, it could have changed the entire landscape of this match, but unfortunately that blitz didn't pan out, and then Nickel Malone pays for it on the flip side, and the avalanche just kind of started from there. But
I would say, fortunately for fans, we will get to see these two teams match up a second time.
This is the rivalry match. So by week 10, maybe a little more development on the Rebels side. Like, there's an opportunity for the payback game, which will be exciting to see.
Absolutely.
All right. Let's talk stats. Week 3's player of the week, surprising no one, with 5 touchdowns, I believe.
5 touchdowns and 19 total SPP.
5 touchdowns, 19 total SPP. Longshanks Steeltail, the gutter runner from the Vermin Skulkers. That also
More than 10 ahead of the second place winner.
That also puts him at the number 1 spot in total SPP. 19 SPP in a single match is likely to do that. Just behind him, Morpheus maintains his spot, and then just behind them, Maple Moss and Lightning Tom tie for the bronze. Over in the scoring category, the sheet continues to get busier, but there is a clear and very well-defined leader in the touchdown category. 8 touchdowns total for Longshanks Steeltail, or not 8 touchdowns total. So that's going to be a record that's going to be hard to beat. I think this year we may see our touchdown leader for the league already, short of a insane act of violence that sees him sidelined for a very long time. But just behind him, Morpheus, Sonia the Dancer, Ted, Lateness, Townie, Robbie, Lightning Tom, Maple Moss at 3, and then just behind him, Funk Flint Reaver, Charlie, Timothy the Voidwalker, Gordy, Mr. Coach Klein's wife, Stretch Sneak Claw, and Scoom Zoom at 2. In the passing category, Dr. Hold on, fuck. I remember I told myself, I was like, I gotta remember to say it right this time. But now I can't remember which way I normally say it. Is it Zayas? Dr. Zayas?
It is.
There
Dr.
it is.
Zayas.
Dr. Zayas and Juniper Mammoth are at the top here. But yeah, Dr. Zayas has got some competition now. No longer alone on that leaderboard.
The good doctor welcomes all competition, though he will win it.
All right. It's an exciting rivalry we're seeing break down here. Just under him, Tretch Venom Fang from the Vermin Skulkers, and then down at 1, Snet, Throwfling, Toxophile the Huntress, Ron Steiger, and Mr. Coach Klein's wife. Not sure of her name, but that's fine. We just know whose wife it is. We don't know who she is.
What they wrote on the form, folks. Like, what were you supposed to do?
It's legal name as far as we know. On the other side, on the receiving end, perhaps, in catches, Gordy the second and Maple Moss lead with 2 catches, and then Funk Flint Reaver, Sonia, Tad Lateness, Cornelius the second, Farmer Fran, Longshank, Stilltail, Cockakitch, and Joaquin Branch all sit in the silver spot with 1. All right, and I realized last week there are some stats that we were not keeping track of, and there's some people who are lighting it up in these stats, so I felt it right to add this to our tracking so that way we can celebrate these players. Notably, the one, obviously the only one that we have so far, is the superb throw teammate stat, because we've had 3 superb throws this season so far, and Birchmont Thunder Branch holds 2 of them, and Sire Reginald in the silver at 1. So it'll be exciting to see this big man throw competition evolve throughout the rest of the season. And unlike previous seasons, we don't have any deflections or interceptions yet. So maybe we'll get to talk about those at some point. All right, in terms of casualties, Diablo Zod, the room's getting a little crowded up at the top as he doesn't post any casualties, but Doom Ripper has himself a day and Squeak Spine Tails stays consistent. They all see themselves at 4. Just in the silver, Patella McAfee, Skyla Skinflare, Ishmael, Mama, Lightning Tom, Mecha Backtan, and Thorn all have, I believe it's, I don't know if it's 3 and 2 or if it's 2 and 1. So apologies.
I know Skinflare has 2.
Okay, so it's 2 and then the bronze is 1. Apologies for the typo. Oh, there's repeat names on there. I don't know what's happening anymore, guys.
We can redo this one. It's okay.
It's fine. You'll get your casualty numbers next week, okay?
Yeah.
Subscribe to find out this week's casualty and next week's.
I can vouch for the gold. The rest, I don't know what happened. Again, the graphics team is, I think, out to get all of us at this point. So, in terms of fouls, however, Farmer Fran's still at top with 3, and just behind him, Delta, Ikaika, and Joe Noki. And in terms of kills, there's actually been an additional kill. So Farmer Fran's still up at 2, but Lazrock Danorg finds himself on the leaderboard with just 1. All right, and last bit of stats we'll talk about. Let's talk about fantasy football. So there we have found, I think, our league winner. Unfortunately, he's not rostered. So FFF players are kicking themselves today to see Longshank Steeltail put up a 5 touchdown week that sees him surge to the top with 55 fantasy points. I mean, over double the next highest.
Looking like Devontae Adams today.
I mean, he's going off and he's on somebody's bench. It's a tragedy. But yeah, the only out of the top 10, the only rostered players are Sonya and Diablo Zod. So exciting stuff. Okay, less exciting stuff. Unlike last week, we did have a death. So we want to take this time to honor that player. So the NKBBL mourns the passing of Nickel Malone, the Goblin lineman from the Guttersburg Rebels.
We have sent an edible arrangement to his family.
Yep, a sad day in the sewers, that's for sure.
And down there, every arrangement's edible. We could have probably saved a few gold.
Okay, let's go around the NKBBL, but first, we'd like to thank our Week 4 sponsors.
Gold Wings! Shoes with an angelic touch. Orctitus! Eat Shrock and die, you Shrock-eating Shrock. Who writes this trait? Kick Ender. End a career before it begins.
Well done. Thank you, Koba.
Thank you. I had this written on this substance you call paper.
All right. Anyway, news and notes from around the league. Over at the Furman Skulkers camp, it's being said that Raxcack Jr. is taking all the credit for all of Stilltail's touchdowns last week, even though he was declared inactive at the beginning. So a little bit of strange reports coming from the Skulkers. And notable cryptocurrency Banana Coin bottoms out. The people... The monkeys, however, in San Fran are going nuts.
Some would even say we're going ape.
Yeah, they are. But so now there is obviously investigations being had on it. Was this a pump and dump scheme? Who knows? And the beast is unleashed. Mintz Lombardi Jr. returns to the Los Alamos Aliens. The rat ogre with a foul odor. And
that's also what they called me in high school.
Yes, we know. All right. And a initial threat turns contract. Walnut Moss approaches the Wildwood Eldar United, telling them they need to do a better job protecting their sister. In return, Wildwood offers Walnut the contract. They sign, and now you see a pair of sibling catchers in the Eldar United. All right, after his breakout game, Doom Ripper sees an increase in his contract, and the Charges send flowers in honor of Nickel Malone to Nickel Malone's funeral. However, the squad is now facing some suing as the flower and arrangement was made with a vase built by Nickel Malone's own helmet. So they're likely to pay some damages. All right. And the NKBBL reaches out to talk their bromance of the season as the amazing connection between Thunder Branch and Joe Noki is cited. I think they're front runners for sure. Alrighty. And that's all of our news and notes from around the league. Now let's talk team standings. Now that we've finally had a week of divisional play, we've got some points up on the board, and people are sitting either at the top, middle, or bottom of the rankings. For the Blood Division, the Roth Legion Rampage and the New England Matriarchs sit at the number 1 and number 2 spot with 3 points apiece, getting wins in their games. The Eldar United and Brainwave Blitzers tie to take up that middle spot. And the Aliens and Nantekan Kings duke it out for 5th and 6th. Over in the Bowl Division, the Skulkers, Charges, and Mudclaws all get their victory and hang out at 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place. And the Rebels, Caesar's Legion, and Orcas all with no points. They're starting to become clear, but another week of divisionals this week. We'll see this picture even more clear next time. All right. Now to talk about the additions and evolutions of each of these squads. The Nantekan Kings bring on Anointed Thrower Ambata Khan.
Oh, yes, I'm about to come.
Yeah.
Very well known in these circles.
Yep, Ambata Khan.
I don't think that's how you pronounce it.
That's what I'm being told. Anyway, so he comes out to help bolster the passing game for the Kings. Altat Remains picks up block, and Patella McAfee picks up guard to be a help to his teammates. They're going to be without Boney Sandstorm this week, but with those additions, I think they'll be in good shape. They do drop a dedicated fan after the loss last week, but the ones that are there are still loyal. So, all right, a whole lot of missed next games for the Guttersburg Rebels. Carl Buff finds himself -1 strength. James Toney is +1 agility, and Funk Flint Reaver gets stepped on, and now he's missing a little bit of his armor. So not what you like to see. We were really getting jazzed last week about Funk, but we'll see what the teams decide to do next week when he returns. And hey, I mean, he's still got dodge and block, so he could still be a weapon. He's just going to be a very fragile weapon, glass cannon, if you will. All right, the Los Alamos Aliens, like we mentioned prior, pick up the Beast, Vince Lombardi Jr., and Alpha picks up Big Hand. The Neuroport Brainwave Blitzers get a host of new skills coming off of their tie. Ulrich Doom Ripper picks up Break Tackle, so he's going to be shifty and a threat on the pitch. Lucius Fell Thief is emerging as the leader of this squad, and Morpheus picks up Block. Pork Chop does get his arm broken and loses a point in passing, but not something I think the Brainwave Blitzers are concerned with. He was not known. His position on the team is not one to be a playmaker. So
absolutely not. Big shout out to Doom Ripper going from potentially being on the chopping block to now being potentially the star blitzer for this team.
Oh yeah, yep. So now he can get out, get away, break those tackles, and hit where he needs to hit. So exciting stuff. All right, not much change in the Matriarch's camp. Toxophile, after her game, picks up Cloudburster on a random, so no chance that she's getting picked off anytime soon. Not much change in the Orlando Orcas camp. They just lose a dedicated fan, and the roster stays static. The Roth Legion Rampage see the addition of human lineman Tucker Frump, and unfortunately, the miss next game of Horace Pringle, who also sees his armor broken for the foreseeable future. Joe Noki, however, picks up Jump Up, so a potential one-turn touchdown scoring threat, as long as his connection with him and Thunderbranch stays as strong as it's shown to be. And the Rampage team decides to employ an assistant coach to help them get all on the right page. All right, the San Fran Caesars Legion, not much change, but Dr. Zayas picks up Pass, so he's going to be a threat with those extra arms, slinging the ball all over the place. However, in that defeat, the dedicated fans are leaving San Fran, so they're going to have to win them back over. Over in the Mudclaws camp, they finally get their 6th source blocker in Lawrence Tagot, and Bobby Boucher gets tackle, so he's becoming a blitzing candidate. Townie Robbie and Mr. Coach Klein's wife both pick up diving tackle, and the dedicated fans go up for the Mudclaws. All right, the Slam Diego Chargers, after their routing of the Guttersburg Rebels, Gur Scramble picks up Block, Lightning Tom picks up Mighty Blow, and they hire famed orc thrower Philip Reavers to help dish out the rock for this Chargers squad. The fans are getting behind the Chargers as their dedicated fans rise to 3. And the Vermin Skulkers, even though they had a massive game, not much changes except for their piggy bank. It's sitting at a expansive 340,000. But Stilltail does pick up Catch, and Scoom Zoom picks up Block. So most of these gutter runners now are at least blodge pieces, besides Kakakitch, who opts to be the dodge wrestle piece. So this team's getting very scary in layman's terms. All right, then the Wildwood Eldar United will round us out. Walkeen Branch picks up Fend. Juniper Mammoth picks up Safe Pass. And the contract is signed, dotted, and dated. Walnut Moss joins the team to be the additional catcher for the squad. And a few linemen will find themselves on the sideline this week. Ivy, Thorn, and Bloom are all miss next game with a niggling injury to manage. Okay, let's catch you guys up in the Pick'ems department. So Dimitri Lund still sitting at the top with 21, but just behind him, Tanaka, after a few good picks, is closing the gap. And Koba, me and you, man, we are hanging out at the bottom, but we're within striking distance. So
And they blame me for following my heart.
yeah. Notably, I can't pick the score. Whatever score I say, it's likely not to be. All right, let's talk about these matchups for week 4. So, the New England Matriarchs versus the Wildwood Eldar United. 1150 for the Matriarchs, 1135 for Wildwood. This is going to be a really tight match in terms of the team value. So for the Matriarchs, they're going to have to embrace the bash this week. So they only have one casualty, which is the worst in the league. But this Matriarch squad has put up at least 20. They did 20 last season. So they got to get back on that path if they want to find themselves winning here against the EU. And it's got to be about that toxic spray, that spray and pray. Can Toxophile get the ball in her hands and dish it out to the people who can go score? So she's got Cloudburster now, so maybe she'll throw some long bombs and we'll see some really exciting pocket presence play. And the Matriarchs, if they want to win, they got to keep that touchdown pace. Last season, they put up 17 touchdowns over the course of that year, and they're about on pace for that now, so they just got to keep doing what they're doing. On the other end, the Wildwood Eldar United, they got to win with that double vision. So Walnut and Maple Moss both take the pitch, so both those catchers got to be elite here for this squad. The speed in this match is going to kill for the Eldar United. They've got 3 catchers, so that makes them on paper a good deal faster than the Matriarchs, and they got to use that speed to get ahead and secure that victory. And they got to go on a journey. So Wildwood, with all those missed next games, they're going to be fielding a few journeymen. So really hoping that the scouts picked up those players right, because they're gonna lean on them and they're gonna need them to seal the victory. But anyway, let's talk about who's winning this game. Tanaka, as always, we start with you.
Thank you. So this is the tightest match of the week with the 15K TV difference. Although the Matriarchs are at the top of the leaderboard, they're largely coasting to success on pretty uneventful play. In 3 games, the Matriarchs have only posted 6 touchdowns and casualties combined, 3rd worst in the league, while their opponent this week, the United, has nearly doubled that with 11, and have managed to hold teams like the Brainwave Blitzers and the Mudclaws to ties. That being said, this is the Matriarchs division to lose, and they've shown us that you can do more with less. So I'm picking the Matriarchs 2-1.
All right, awesome. Dimitri, how do you see it going down?
Well, I think the Matriarchs will have to continue their evasive playstyle, even though they are starting to open up the field a little bit more. But with that in mind, even with the field starting to open up for their, personal talents, the Eldar United have shown to have a very solid defense in this early start to the season. But we've mentioned already that the Matriarchs are a very low event team, and that sounds like mostly a jab at them, but it also means that the other team on the pitch isn't doing anything to them either. So the EU are going to have to find a way to start clearing Amazons off the pitch if they want to win this game. I think the Matriarchs are just too consistent of a team. I have them winning 2-1.
All righty. Koba.
Much like my compatriots, I came to the same conclusion 2-1 for the Matriarchs, but for completely different reasons.
Which
Amazons,
you won't explain, right?
which I refuse to go into.
Alrighty. Yeah, I gotta agree. I think it goes to the Matriarchs just because they are... Amazons are strange, right? Like, they're not an elf team because they're agility 3, but they get dodge everywhere, so they're where the elf teams want to be after like half of a season. And I think just having that intrinsic skill is gonna beat out the missing out on that 2+ agility. So, but I do think both these teams are not afraid to just put it in the end zone and figure out how to defend it later. I don't foresee any stalling in this match. I think it goes 3-2 Matriarchs. However, I think they both put up a score each. They each put up a score in the half, and then Matriarchs seal it away with with a bit of a daring play at the end. So, all right, the Rampage take on the Los Alamos Aliens. So Rampage come in at 1190, the Aliens come in at 1405. So a little bit of shopping for the Rampage. So in order for Rampage to get this done, they got to have that Nochi takeoff. So Joe Noki has a potential to be a scoring threat as long as Thunder Branch's arm remains strong. They also got to maintain that mountainous defense, indicative of their ethos. So they lead the league in touchdowns against. So they've only given up one score so far. So that's going to be key to continue doing that. And they got to stay in the clouds. So right now they see themselves on the top of the Blood Division. They pull off this win today. Yeah, I guess it will be today. They pull it off. They'll stay high and good to go. All right, on the Aliens side, we're back, guys. We got 3 big guys. Get your 3 big guys shirt
Over at our Redbubble.
over on our spread shirt. You can get the 3 big guys shirt. It's pretty cool, actually. Anyway, yeah, with Vince Lombardi joining the crew, the Aliens return to their former glory. 3 big guys is the way they've always wanted to play, and we're happy to see it. They got to be built different, right? So they're a high-performing team in the casualty column. They just need to show that. They didn't get any casualties last week, so they got to get back to that very vicious way of playing and just show that the Aliens are built just a bit different than humans are. And they got to stop this slide, right? They're 0-3, but if you look at the grand scheme of things, there's only been one divisional match. They're only 0-1 in divisional play. So they take down the Rampage here, the first place team, then they're going to immediately flip the script because they'll have, the same amount of points and they can start to build momentum from there. But Tanaka, what is your prediction here?
Well, I'm just going to say this match is going to be really exciting. Just for historical context, this is the first instance of Chaos Renegades, a mixed team, facing the OWA, a mixed team, in league history. These are 2 very unwieldy teams. Both coaches have been playing since the first season, so I expect a lot of good things here. If I could pick a tie, I would, just because almost every match I've played with Laws has either ended in a loss for me or a tie, unless you count the first season, which that was technically a tie that had to end somehow because it was playoffs. But overall, we've always played really close, tight matches. We haven't really had a lot of big shutouts. So I think it'll be a good one to watch if we could watch. But as you've already said, this is not the match of the week for that.
This is probably my second in line, but there is one that is just so electric. Agree. I cannot not put it on the broadcast.
Yeah. And this is a bit of a slide, but like you said, they're technically 0-1. And although this is kind of the worst start this coach has ever had, I'm just looking at context for performance, and it makes me feel a little bit better, although we still have a lot of games to play. So when you're looking at who the Aliens have played these first 3 weeks, they've played the Charges, the Skulkers, and the Matriarchs, who are second, first, and fifth overall in the standings. They have a combined win-loss tie ratio of 7-0-2 and have a total of 23 league points in the overall standings. By comparison, the Rampage have only played, up until this point, the Orcas, Caesar's Legion, and the Kings, who are 11th, 9th, and 12th in the standings, and are 0-8-1. So, despite the scores, I think these 2 teams are a bit closer than expected, and I'm going to say this is going to be a really tight match. I think it'll be a 2-1 win for the Aliens, but if it is a tie, do not be surprised, because that happens more often than not.
All right. Dimitri, how about you?
Well, I think that strength of schedule is a big red circle on the page for anyone that's been following along with us this season, and it's a big part of the equation. The Aliens have gone up against teams that literally are, for my money, the top 3 ranked teams in the league. And by comparison, the Rampage are still trying to, I think get those last little pieces together, and they've been able to scrape by playing against teams on the bottom half of the table. I think this will, very much like Tanaka said, be a bit of a slugfest that will be probably close in the stat lines regardless. I don't see this being a huge blowout, but this is an experienced Aliens team that can, well, not just can, but is particularly looking for that chance to finally turn the corner and have that breakout game, which even the first game of the season when they played the Charges looked like it could have been that. They just didn't get the win. I also have the Aliens winning this game 2-1. The Rampage are going to be in it for an uphill grind. They do have an inducement package they're going to have to look at, but I still think the Aliens are going to be the better team.
Alrighty, Koba.
Those were a lot of words spoken. Well, let me keep mine short and even sweet. The Rampage are going to take this 2-1. Now you're probably asking, why? Because I watched them beat my brothers into the ground. I have faith that this coach can work miracles and put xenomorphs back into the sky.
All right, we like it short and sweet. That's why we have you here. We need the contrast between you and our more verbose members. And for me, I got to go with the Aliens here. I think the Chaos Renegades squad with their three big guys is just a little dangerous to deal with. And the Rampage are still trying to get on their feet. They're still fielding halflings. I think if Zod has his way, which he's had most weeks, I can see them finally getting over the hump here and getting a win. All right, the New Report Brainwave Blitzers take on the Antekan Kings. So the Kings are going to have a little bit of an inducement package here as the New Report comes in at 1230 and the Kings are only at 970. For the New Report Brainwave Blitzers, Ulrich Doom Ripper has got to come in untethered. So I think Ulrich's claws are going to come in handy here. And I think it's Timothy's time to shine. So Timothy has got movement 8. He's the fastest player on the team. I think it's really going to make him, he's really going to look like lightning compared to these Tomb King squad. And we've seen a ton of bloodlust in Neuroport. Lots of thralls going down, lots of bloodlust causing issues. In order to get these wins on the board, Neuroport's got to turn this bloodlust into a little bit of blood love, right? More than just the blood. It's been a crutch, but they once they get locked in, I think it won't be as much of an issue. On the other end, for the Kings, it's all about Mbata Khan. So he's gonna be a lovely addition to the squad with his throwing ability, and they're gonna have to do it without Sandstorm. So Boney Sandstorm is out. They're gonna be missing that key blitzer, so it's gonna be a little tough. But a good trip to the bazaar, to the shop, could see them finding the edge that gets them the victory here. They're going to come in with 260k, and if they spin that correctly, then they may be able to equalize this match. But Tanaka, what is your prediction?
Well, as you've said, they're going to have a pretty big amount of gold to spend. They're going to dive into their tomb with the second highest inducement package of the week at 260k. The Kings are still looking for their first win this season, and it's against the Blitzers team who have to juggle their bloodlust, but overall have had really productive casualties and touchdowns, posting pretty good numbers overall, despite being an even 500. The Kings have the tools to squish the Thralls early, but I think it's going to be a little bit too late to take that W. I do think they will get a score, though, so I'm going to pick a 3-1 win for the Blitzers.
All right, Dimitri.
Well, a lot of similar sentiments where I think the Kings are finally getting their footing, especially with an inducement package that'll help shore up the difference between these two teams here. One thing I do want to note here is we talk about the bloodlust issue, and it's something we kind of missed when we were talking about the draw against Eldar United from this past week, was the Blitzers were down their whole bench of Thralls this past week, and they're back at nearly full strength for that, and that will be a big difference as far as their level of aggression that they can have in this game. That said, the Kings can put together the pieces. I think if they can, stay forward with that attack, they can at least slow down the Blitzers. But this Blitzers team much like the Aliens, I think is looking for that opportunity to have like a real breakout game. I have the Blitzers taking this one 2-0. I think things can go a little south for these vampires still. I'm perfectly open to being proven wrong because this team, as shown in their game against Orlando earlier this season, could just have an opportunity and break right through.
All right. Koba, how do you see it?
I see it going in a similar manner. As much as I enjoy skeletons, there's something you must consider about them. They have no meat on their bones, which means their legs are technically shorter. Therefore, this one will go to...
All right. Thank you. And for me, I'm going to give it 3-1 to the Blitzers. Like you said, they've got a good chunk of their throw linemen back, and I think that speed is really going to see them get ahead here. But I do think this will be a match where the Kings maybe do start to equalize and get a lot of casualties. I think as they start to pick the bones of the Thralls, they might come out of this with a good level of experience. All right, now we're getting to talk about an excellent match. No shade to any of the other coaches in the other matches, but this one has always been electric. From the Sevens Championship to any other match that we've seen him in, it's just always amazing. So this is what you guys are going to get to see later tonight. But anyway, the Mudclaws take on the Skulkers. SCLSU at 1440 TV. The Skulkers just a little bit behind at 1305. Mostly even. For the Mudclaws, they got to be cold-blooded killers here. They do have the kill leader. Farmer Fran's got 2, so he's going to have to be on his A game in order to secure victory for the Mudclaws. Bobby got his tackling few as he picks up both block and tackle. It's going to be incredibly critical that he comes out and does well in order to take care of some of those gutter runners. And they got to play the game in slow-mo a little bit. What I mean by that is the Skulkers games, as we have talked about all season, they have a tendency to get a little out of hand. These scores get incredibly high. I mean, they set the record last week, right? So the Mudclaws, the best thing that they're going to be able to do for themselves is they got to slow this thing down. They got to stall the Skulkers out a little bit, long enough for them to start getting the bash game moving. If they do that, I think they've got a pretty good chance. But on the other side, the Vermin Skulkers, they got to break out them. What is it, Koba? They got to break out them long legs. Long shanks.
Rat legs.
Yep, we've measured. We know Longshank Steeltail has had the longest leg out of all of those gutter runners. So he's got to stay alive.
We've ever seen.
It's crazy.
His legs were the longest.
Longest we've ever seen.
Many such cases, yes.
But anyway, so he's got to stay alive. He's got to keep being elite. He's got to get away and score like he has done all season. And they got to play this game in the trenches. No, that is not a typo, because Tretch Venom Fang, he's got to light it up in this passing game in order to see themselves get past the Mudclaws and into the end zone. And they just got to keep up that scoring superiority. It's no shock after what happened last week that the Vermin Skulkers lead the league in touchdown differential and touchdowns with 11 and 13 respectively. They just got to keep doing what they're doing, and I think it'll work out all right. But Tanaka, what happens in this match?
Oh man. Okay, so you know who I'm gonna pick. I'm a little biased, but I'm gonna give some context here. So first of all, this is gonna be our game of the year. I think this has game of the year written all over it. This is the first of 2 rivalry matches between these 2 titans of the Bowl Division. There's a good chance that the rematch that they'll have in Week 10 will have 2 very different looking squads, as both teams are developing still throughout the season. The Skulkers are on a hot hand, but when I look at the Mudclaws, I see a team loaded with talent and an eye for pain. So, for context, they have 6 players with block out of 13. They just picked up double diving tackle, which I think is a severely underrated skill, especially against gutter runners. And as we've said, Bobby Boucher got his tackling few, so he's going to be looking to crack some heads open. Now, I still expect the Skulkers to have a good chance to win this, but if I had to pick, I'm putting my money on the kitted out Lizardmen squad that can dash nearly as fast, but bash twice as hard. I'm picking 3-2 Mudclaws.
Alrighty. And Dimitri? What about you?
Well, Tanaka, I share a lot of sentiments with you. I think this is an instant classic. I think the specific development on these teams has this looking more like the bigger of the two games they're going to have this season. I definitely agree with that. If there's a team that I think has the functionality to slow down the Skulkers attack, it is the coaching matchup that these two legendary coaches have already built up in their short time participating in the NKBBL. If you actually caught any of that early part of the Vermin Orlando game last week, even though that game quickly spiraled out of control, for that early going, even the Orcs had a habit of slowing them down and showing what it takes to gum up the rats and kind of bait them into that fight. And there's no team that does that better than the Mudclaws can. And the scary thing, as you mentioned, they're also a team that can run with the rats just as well. I think this game turns into a shootout as well, but that momentum that the Skulkers are riding to start this season is just absolutely so high. And they do have the flexibility we mentioned in the keys to victory here. There's a legitimate passing game that the Skulkers have not really gotten to employ yet this season. And I think if they can, back out of that, in the trenches death ball style that these two teams like to play just enough to really open up that passing game, I think the Skulkers can still pull this away. I have it 3-2, but I have the Skulkers taking this one.
Ooh, buddy. And here's the greatest part about this. Like they mentioned before, this is a rivalry match. We get to do this again. But I love it. The desk is split. So Koba, what do you got?
I will speak with my whole chest. The Vermin have been quickly becoming the most terrifying team in the league. They know how to pass, and these rats are fast. Now, that being said, these lizards do know how to smack a rat or 7. But ultimately, I think the speed of their little rat legs will lead them to victory. And it will be a 3-1 victory for the Vermin.
All right. Well, I gotta disagree with you, Koba. I think this one goes to the Mudclaws here, 3-2.
This is a house divided.
Yes, it is. We're completely split. So this just goes to show why this is going to be a great one. But I think in the end, Nuffle works in mysterious yet somewhat predictable ways. When you come off of such an electric match, he will find you and he will humble you. And I think this might be one of those situations where the Skulkers ride real hot, and then that very next week they're gonna have to deal with some injury, I think, as they run into these Mudclaws. So I think it sees them a little bit on the short end of the match, and they just miss it 3-2. All right, the Orc Bowl, as we're now calling it, the Slam Diego Chargers take on the Orlando Orcas in a mirror match. So the Chargers come in at 1260, and the Orcas are still at the 1010 that they've had since week 2. So they're going to get a little bit of cash to spend for this one. But for the Orcas, they're finally healthy. So I think this will be a good key for them because they are fully undamaged for the first time since turn 3 of week 1. So turn 3 was exactly when the injury train started rolling. Diablo Zod picks off one of the biggins, and from then they just were never all on the pitch all at the same time. So it's good to see. Now Philip Reavers at quarterback. So he brings that pocket presence, that ball carrying to the squad. We'll just have to worry about the animosity and what that means for this passing game. And they got to continue to be top table crushes. So after the last match, the Chargers surged to the top of the casualty tables with 12 total casualties and a +6 differential. For the Orlando Orcas, they got to withstand the charge. So the Chargers have more scoring threats that'll need to be dealt with. So they have to be mindful of that and take those out. They got to bring the proper tools. So they're going to come in with 250K. So lots of inducements that can change the outcome. And just at the end of the day, they got to be the better Orcs. This is the only mirror match that we'll have. This is the only duplicate race that we have in the NKBBL this year. So they gotta meet them with the same stats and similar builds and say, I'm better than you. But Tanaka, how do you see this one going?
Well, I think the Orcs are going to win the Orc Bowl,
It's likely.
but it's likely. Okay, but no, really. This being probably the only mirror match, unless if they face each other in the playoffs towards the end of the season or a bowl game of some sort. Typically, I think mirror matches are kind of a trap on paper because you really just have to go with the dice and just development at that point. But I am going to probably give this lean to the former champ from season 2. Leaping to 1,260 CTV after only 3 games, their development has just grown exponentially since the jump, despite their injury woes. And on the flip side, the Orcas have just not had a real chance to not only get a score, but get a lot of development out of the gate. So if I had to pick one, I got to go with the hot hand here. I do expect another shutout, though. Sadly, I'm thinking a 3-0 win for the Chargers.
All right. What about you, Dimitri?
I think it's pretty much a lot of the same sentiments. The Chargers are just absolutely firing at all cylinders. I have them up at rank 2 of my personal power rankings at this point. They're looking borderline unstoppable. This coach has had, previous seasons with momentum, riding hot hands before, and it has always turned out good. And on the flip side, you have an Orcas team that I think is just out there trying to, as I've mentioned before, just put fist to face, and sometimes it's enough for them. I also have this one going 3-0 for the Chargers. Hopefully the Orcas can get a little bit of momentum here, because again, in a mirror match, you do have the ability to kind of square up even. And the Orcas, up until this past week, looked like a team that was capable of still putting down the hurt a little bit, even if they weren't trying to play the ball. The thing is, the Chargers at the end of the day are just a far more complete team.
All right, Koba, what's your prediction?
Looking at this mirror match, their legs are equally long. So I just have to look at history. And this one, I believe, will go to Slam Diego. But 4-1.
All right.
I believe there will be very silly things afoot.
Yeah, I gotta almost match you there, Koba. I'm going 4-0. I think you're half right. Like you said, there's silly things afoot. The difference in TV is really because the Chargers have employed the Troll, which is something the Orcas don't have. They have a Goblin, which they can throw, and that's also an element of their game. And now they've got a thrower, so they're all scoring threats, which I think is going to lead the Chargers to come out on top. The Orcas, like you said, they like Dimitri had spoken to, they are just out to hurt and maim, and I think the Chargers can accept that beating and also put some points up on the board. So it'll be interesting to see if the Orcas continue to do what they're doing. This is what I expect, but these Orc squads, we've had one previously too. Every once in a while, they get squirrely, they change their game, and they end up shocking the world. So all right. And the Caesars Legion take on the Guttersburg Rebels. The Caesars Legion come in at 1245, and the Rebels is all the way down at 860. This is our biggest cash differential, so they're going to have lots to think about. So for San Fran, Harambe's back. So he after his missed next game, he's back. He's healthy. We're hearing word that he's practiced with the team this week, so that'll be a key to get them back on the right track. The Caesars Legion, in order to pull this off, they're going to have to take use of those thick primate skulls. So San Fran leads the league in casualties against. They've only suffered 2 casualties, so they got to stay healthy like this if they want to continue winning. And then they got to take advantage, right? There are a ton of key players missing for Guttersburg. So this is a good opportunity to capitalize. They're missing a blitzer, and they're missing Funk Flint Reaver, the gutter runner. So short of what the Rebels are going to induce, the path is pretty clear for San Fran, I think. On the flip side, like we had mentioned, Funk Flint Reaver, he got armor busted last match, so they will be funkless for this match. And they just got to avoid being the punching bag. So they're the worst in every casualty category. Right now, they're posting a -10 casualty differential with only 1 casualty caused and 11 suffered. So that's not what you like to see. So they're going to have to stop being the league's punching bag, I think, if they want to come out of this. And I know they're capable of doing it, so it's not dire just yet. And for them, nothing's off limits. Like we mentioned, this inducement game, there's 385,000 on the line to spend, there is not a single inducement that Guttersburg can't buy. So they're going to have to use that wisely. All right, Tanaka, what's your breakdown?
Well, there's a lot to say. The Guttersburg Rebels, 2-time champs. This is a pretty bad slump. One of the worst in the league at the moment. That last game that happens like once every season or two. Like that kind of performance doesn't happen often. I don't expect that to happen again moving forward. That said, San Fran Caesar Legion, I think, is better rated than where they are ranked at the moment. Besides the Aliens facing a total opponent score of 7-0-2, the Caesars Legion are right behind them. Their opponents are 6-0-3 for this season. So they've had a really tough schedule, but despite that, they've kept it close. They've kept themselves relatively healthy. Their total differential is only -1, while Guttersburg is a -13. Like, when it comes to activity, they're matching blow for blow, pound for pound. They're just not getting that win. Now, when it comes to the actual prediction, it's going to be rough. The Rebels are limping into San Fran on life support here. They're going to have to embrace their Guttersburg tradition way back in Season 1, pulling out all the stops and some inducement packages to try and keep this close. But what I'm looking at right now, just on the roster, they have 5 journeyman goblin linemen. Their total strength, they're almost all strength 2. Meanwhile, San Fran, being as healthy as they are, their lowest strength is 3. This might be a repeat of last week. And if the Rebels want to keep their playoff hopes alive, they're going to have to try and pull out a win here. But I do expect the Legion to get their win this season, right here, this first win. If they're going to start their playoff march, it's going to have to start here. So I'm going to say 2-0 Legion.
All right, Dimitri.
I definitely have to agree with some of the sentiments here. San Fran Caesars Legion are a much better team than their record and their stat lines would show. They're definitely, punching way above this severely crippled Rebels team, and I think that's the biggest thing to acknowledge here, is that as long as Caesar Legion takes advantage of the raw, stat lines of the players available on both sides, they're definitely in with a big advantage here, and they look a lot better than they have in the past. So I think that's the scary thing to check for. But with all that in mind, coaching can go a long way, and this is a 2-time champion running a struggling Guttersburg squad who has a massive inducement package. And if there's one thing I will ever give credit to this team for being, it's being resourceful. We mentioned it very briefly about how the very beginning of the game against Slam Diego this past week, they were immediately looking for every opening that I think most people would not be checking for. 385 is a lot of money. I have not the slightest clue what the Rebels are going to have up their sleeve, but I think it's going to be something absolutely disgusting. And that's going to be, I think, the biggest fear is not that the Caesars Legion can't be the stronger team, but are they going to be prepared for whatever the Rebels are going to spring on them in the pre-match proceedings? With that in mind, that resourcefulness, I think, is actually why I think the Rebels can turn the corner here. I have this being a very close game, but it's the Rebels 2-1, because I think they're going to have tricks up their sleeve, and I don't think there's a team in the league that's better at having a trick up their sleeve than Guttersburg.
Agreed. We know what the game stealers were capable of. I think that's very similar with the Rebels here. Koba, what you got?
Well, they may be tricky, but as you are probably aware, primates have some of the largest brains in the animal kingdom. I see them outclassing them in both skill as well as players. They are lined with nothing but generic linemen, journeymen if you would, and because they're so injured and because they're so off their game, I see this going to my alma mater, the San Fran Caesars Legion, 2-1.
All right. And I actually predicted the exact same score as you, Koba. So for once, we agree.
Very rare.
It's very, very rare. But yeah, I think given a healthy versus healthy team, I would change the outcome of this. There is the inducement package. You can buy whatever you would like. But I think it's one of those situations where the extra arms that's on every player of San Fran and this inherent strength advantage that they have, they're just going to be able to reliably pick up the ball, play keep away, and just continue this beat down on Guttersburg. But we will see. I've got them going 2-1. But that'll do it for us here today. We've seen all the matches. Again, tune in later tonight to catch that SCLSU Mudclaws versus Vermin Skulkers match. I'm telling you, you don't want to miss it. Is there anything else from my crew here at the desk before we head out?
Remember
Good
to
luck
set
tonight.
your parlays before the match.
Use code BOOM for an extra 10 gold on your parlay.
On your parlays.
We hope you've been enjoying KBBL coverage so far, and by all means, be sure to send us messages if you are enjoying our broadcast or if you'd like to see something more from us.
Yeah, please. Again, I hope you guys are liking it. Let us know how you feel about it. And because we're gonna be here doing it every week until this thing's over. So
Either you like it or not.
right. Anyway, thank you guys for watching Wartscenter. Have a wonderful night.
Us.